Hello, my name is Heidi Jauhiainen. I'm from the University of Helsinki, and I will tell you how we have been studying semantic domains in Akkadian texts. Since 2016, our research group has been studying the meaning of Akkadian words and the context the words are used in. Our group consists, in fact, of two very close projects. The semantic domains in Akkadian text is led by Krister Lindén, and the deep learning and semantic domains in Akkadian texts by Saana Svärd. We are a group of Assyriologists and language technologists, and I myself am an Egyptologist with a degree in computer science, and I'm in charge of handling the textual data and visualizations. Now, both of these projects are also part of the Academy of Finland funded Center of Excellence in Ancient Near Eastern Empires, which is led by Saana Svärd. When we talk about Akkadian texts, we are talking about ancient Mesopotamia. The heartland of Mesopotamia was in the modern-day Iraq, but the empires of Assyria and Babylonia expanded from time to time all the way to the Mediterranean coast, to Turkey, to Egypt, and so forth. Akkadian language was written using cuneiform script, often on clay tablets, such as here in the picture. The language was used for 2.5 millennia, and there were, of course, various stages of the language during this long period of time, and these stages differ from each other. The Assyrian dialect in the north and the Babylonian dialect in the south, although they were contemporary, they were also slightly different. Our data comes from the Open Richly Annotated Cuneiform Corpus, or ORACC. ORACC is a cooperation of various projects from around the world, and the different projects publish texts from various time periods, or, for example, certain genres of text. There is, for example, a project publishing royal inscriptions from the Near Assyrian period, and another one concentrating on model contracts from Babylonia. The texts from ORACC are freely downloadable as JSON files. Since ORACC is an ongoing initiative, the data keeps growing and being updated. Apart from Akkadian, there are also other languages written with cuneiform script. In our latest download from ORACC, we got 17,500 texts, of which about half were in Akkadian language. In ORACC, the texts are presented in transliterated form, so that the cuneiform signs have been transformed into Latin script with many special characters. And about half of the words have been annotated with dictionary forms, part of speech tags, and so forth. Now, Akkadian language has a lot of spelling variations and a very complex morphological system. We have therefore opted for using the lemmas for our analysis. And in a small dataset such as ours, conjunctions and prepositions make a bigger impact in the results than in a large dataset. Therefore, we decided to use only nouns, verbs, and adjectives, and replace all the other words with a placeholder. The way names of gods and places are lemmatized in different projects in ORACC, it varies sometimes a lot, since these words cannot be found in dictionaries. We have compiled lists to standardize these words. And we also replaced the names of individual people and kings with placeholders. And after all this pre-processing of text data, of text, our data looks like this. The cuneiform script does not indicate the end of a sentence, and these have not been marked in ORACC either. And since we don't have sentence markers, we put each document on a separate line in the file. We are using several methods to analyze the words in our data. With pointwise mutual information, or PMI, we can see which words appear together. And with fast text, which uses the so-called continuous skipgram model, we can find semantically similar words. And the result we get using these methods are lists of words with numbers that indicate, for example, closeness or co-occurrences. Often we complement these methods with network analysis. Network analysis we use for finding and visualizing connections between words. In order to interpret the word list produced with our methods, we have over the years created a workflow, which is an iterative process. First, we visualize the results, and our Assyriologists study the visualizations, and this often raises questions. The visualizations are compared to the statistical data on the lists, and then the Assyriologists study the words in their original context. And the results of this iterative process are then reviewed in light of previous research. For visualization, we often use graphs created with Gephi. Gephi is an openly available visualization tool. And in a graph, we can look at the links between words and identify words that have common collocates, indicating common or similar contexts. In order to find explanations to what we see in the graphs, we use KORP. KORP is an online concordance search tool, and the KORP provided by the Language Bank of Finland contains the texts from ORACC. And the different contexts in which words are used are shown as concordances, and this helps our Assyriologists to understand what they saw in the graphs. For each word, there is also a link to the original text in ORACC, so that they can easily go and check the larger context of the whole text. Afterwards, they usually go back to study the visualized results again, and then they come back to KORP several times. I'm going to present some results we have got using this workflow. In the first case study, we were studying the use of divine names in texts from the Near Assyrian period. In order to find co-occurrences of the divine names, we used network analysis, and for calculating the tie strength of these co-occurrences, we used PMI. And we noticed something interesting about the god AŠŠUR. Now, many Mesopotamian deities are known already from texts written in the 2nd or even the 3rd millennium BCE. But during the first half of the 1st millennium BCE, when the Assyrian rulers expanded their kingdom, they promoted AŠŠUR, who was the main god of their own capital. So they promoted AŠŠUR to the head of the whole Mesopotamian pantheon. In our dataset, AŠŠUR is the 2nd most often attested god, but his centrality values in the network are surprisingly low. Only the betweenness centrality of AŠŠUR seems to be high, which is here the 3rd column. This would indicate that he, AŠŠUR, holds the different parts of the network together. But when our Assyriologists studied the results more closely, they realized that there is a small group of gods of the Arabs that are only connected to AŠŠUR. And when we excluded this group, AŠŠUR's betweenness centrality became very low, seen here in the last column. So, from statistical perspective, AŠŠUR was not as central in the pantheon of the Near Assyrian pantheon as the Near Assyrian kings might have hoped. If we were to remove AŠŠUR from his own ego network, which is visualized here, this would not create a hole in the network. The other gods would still be well connected to each other. Well, apart from the gods of the Arabs, of course. They would not be connected to the Mesopotamian deities anymore at all. In the second case study, Aleksi, Sahala and Saana Svärd looked at verbs of seeing in all ORACC texts stacked as Akkadian. They used PMI to find collocates to these words denoting seeing. And Aleksi used a slightly different kind of visualization of the results. The colored circles here represent semantic domains, consisting of different collocates. And certain verbs of seeing share part of their collocates with each other, and therefore the semantic domains are partly overlapping. For example, the verbs baru, hiatu, and suppu form a semantic domain of examining. Baru refers to kind of reading, while hiatu was used for looking closely at objects, and suppu for examining larger things such as buildings. Natalu, on the other hand, was used in totally different text types from the other verbs, and therefore it does not share collocates with other words. We have also been studying Akkadian words indicating fear, anger, and love. To study the relationship of these emotion words to each other and to other words, we used both PMI and fast text. We have focused our attention to each group of emotion words at the time, that is to fear, anger, and love, but we always analyze them in connection to each other. I will tell you a bit about our study of fear words. First of all, our visualization of the fast text results showed that some fear words are very closely connected to certain words denoting anger. By studying these words in the visualization of the PMI results and in KORP, our Assyriologists could see that these particular words of fear and anger are used in a common context, namely in connection of war and battle. We also wanted to find out what effect further pre-processing on the data would have on our results, and we combined the derivative nouns and adjectives of emotion words to their verbal roots. In Akkadian, there are also many homonyms with several meanings, and we separated such homonyms on the basis of the translations of words in the ORACC metadata. But since there was a lot of variation in how the words were translated in different ORACC projects, we had to take measures to keep synonymous translations together, and we did this both automatically and with a semi-manually compiled list. But this was quite a lot of work. The verb sahatu is a homonymous word with several meanings. In addition to be afraid, it means armpit and to wash off. And because of this, it stands apart from other emotion words in our visualizations when homonymous words are not separated. But the adjective sahtu, which is derived from sahatu and means something like reverent, sahtu clusters with various words denoting love, seen here on the left. But when we separate the homonyms and collapse the adjectives and nouns to their verbal roots, the fear word sahatu is very much connected with the love word ram. By using KORP, our Assyriologists realized that the context where this word of fear is often used is the royal inscriptions. And in these inscriptions, the king of Assyria describes his loving but fearfully respectful relationship with the gods. And this explains the similarity of the fear word sahatu to the words of love. Now, after our experiments with root combining and homonym separation, we realized that we can do a lot without too much pre-processing, so saving a lot of time and effort. However, adding the homonym separation alone to our basic pre-processing might be a good idea. Now, to conclude, since our dataset is not particularly big, the results we get from our methods are not always self-evident. We have made several studies on different kinds of words, and on the way, we have developed and tested this iterative workflow. We visualize our results and study the links between words and the collocates that they share. We then study the contextual, the textual context of the words that seem interesting using the concordance tool KORP. And we keep going back to this visualization several times. We have found that such an iterative operation is very useful in interpreting the results. Here are the articles where we have used our workflow, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you.